All right, you may have heard a disturbing story from Maine where some extreme lawmakers sought to turn their state into a sanctuary state for minors seeking gender surgeries. And I want to tell you what this legislation they proposed would actually do. I'm going to say this slowly and carefully. I want this to sink in to you. Democrats introduced legislation in the state of Maine that would allow the state to take custody of children from parents who didn't go along with their child's gender confusion. The bill would also have allowed the state to take in runaway children who travel to Maine for these permanent experimental procedures. Wow. Well, we've got some good news. The Maine House Judiciary Committee rejected that bill last night by a unanimous vote. And joining me now to discuss this is Maine State Representative Jennifer Poirier. She is the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee and represents the 70th District in the state of Maine. Representative, welcome to Washington Watch. Great job.
Thank you for having me, Jody. Good to see you.
Well, it's great to see you. I can't tell you how great and thrilled we are to you and all of your colleagues there in Maine for demonstrating a sense of reason last night and putting an end to this bill's path to possible enactment. Many parents, I'll just say this too, Jennifer, throughout the entire country, join me right now in a big thank you, thank you, thank you for what you did. All right, so this bill was killed by a unanimous vote. Was this the outcome that you expected?
I can't say that we were expecting the outcome to be unanimous, but we were definitely hoping and praying that it would come this way. Unfortunately, in Maine, we have Democratic leadership in the House, the Senate, and of course our governor. So they can push through any legislation they want by having the majority. And this was a bill that we very much felt strongly against.
All right, so pull back the curtain for us, if you will, a little bit. There's no doubt that you and other members of the Judiciary Committee had to have some pretty serious discussion and debate about all of this. So if you can kind of take us back behind the scenes, what kind of discussions did y'all have among yourselves when talking about this bill?
Sure, Jody. First of all, this was a carryover bill. So we started it last session. That's when it had its public hearing. And there were grave concerns from both sides on the bill's contents. One of the major issues was that tied law enforcement's hands. So if a person took any child from any state to Maine for these procedures or drugs for gender or hormone therapy, the law enforcement through the bill was forced to not recognize that and make it a low priority, its lowest priority, in fact, which obviously would cause human trafficking of our children. So that was a major, major concern. Also, the fact that the bill forced the state of Maine not to recognize other court orders from other states. So these sort of things really put our children in jeopardy and take away parental rights, which as Republicans, we feel very strongly about keeping those rights.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this bill potentially giving the state authority to take custody of children if the parents are opposing somehow this moving forward with gender transition surgeries is just stunning to me. I mean, that had to have been a frightening scenario for you and others in your discussions with all of this. What did you hear from your constituents and the other members of your committee? What did they hear? Was this a big outcry from constituents saying, what are you doing here?
Certainly. I received so many emails and phone calls from people in my district, throughout the state, and actually throughout the country, because this was a bill that was put on the national forefront, as it should have been. The concerns were that the state was taking people's children and there was nothing anybody could do about it. Just the bill itself had so much wrong with it. I mean, right down to, a child comes from another state, the state of Maine taxpayers would pay for everything. It was a horrid bill, just horrible.
Well, it really is. I mean, it's gotten the attention of many of us too to realize just how horrible it was. So, the decision, the vote last night, 12-0, is kind of, we look back. People like myself and others look at that vote and say, "All right, that was a slam dunk rejection of this bill." But is it really a slam dunk? Is there any way that this thing can resurface or come back later, or do you feel like enough of a loud statement was made last night that it's going to put an end to this type of thing?
Well, Judy, I think that this session it's over. Obviously, we're coming into election season, so I think Democrats realize that too, that passing a bill so extreme like this would harm them come November. But I do not doubt that next year, I think we'll see similar legislation, maybe not so extreme, but they will continue to push the agenda when it's safe for them to do so.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing that it's just persistent in this type of thing over and over. Why, in your opinion, is this such an important issue that must be addressed?
Well, I can speak for my side. As far as Republicans, we need to address it because it's our children's lives at stake. Parents are their kids' number one advocates, and I firmly believe that, having raised 7 sons myself. It's up to us as parents, it's up to us as adults to love our children and to teach them to love themselves for who they are, not try to change them, which I feel legislation such as this is trying to do, trying to change our children into something they're not, and they're not meant to be.
Well, again, I cannot say enough heartfelt thank you to you for taking a stand and your other members on the Judiciary Committee. You stood well, you stood strong. I'm sure there was a lot of opposition in it, but we're deeply grateful. Thank you, Maine State Representative Jennifer Poirier. We appreciate